All right, welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we always talk about Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, and everyone brings up its wit and cleverness.
Right, yeah.
But today, we're going a little bit deeper than just the lines themselves.
Okay.
We're really trying to look at how Shakespeare brings this story to life, how he makes it something we can see and experience, and not just something we read.
Interesting.
And to help us do that, we have some great material here that'll unpack his methods. And what we're really trying to figure out is, how does he use these techniques to keep us engaged, to make it so this play is still meaningful to us even hundreds of years later?
I see. Yeah, that's a great point.
So, when we talk about taking a story and turning it into a play, that's really what dramatization is.
Exactly.
It's taking something and then figuring out how to make it an experience for the audience.
Yeah.
Not just, reciting words, but actually showing what's happening. And Shakespeare was so good at this. This wasn't just something, for people to sit in a library and read. This was meant to be performed in front of a live audience. And you can tell that it really worked back then just as much as it works today.
It's true.
So how do we even begin to unpack all of that?
Well, when you think about theater and how a story gets told, dialogue is really the most important part. Because instead of giving us, a bunch of narration, the story actually moves forward by what the characters say to each other.
Yeah, so we learn who the characters are, what their motivations are, how they relate to each other, all through these exchanges that they have.
Exactly.
And it's not just about giving information.
Right.
It's about creating an impact on everyone watching.
Yes.
There's a real kind of weight behind it.
That's right.
And, Much Ado About Nothing is full of great examples of this.
It really is.
Like Beatrice and Benedict, their back and forth is just amazing.
The banter is legendary.
It is. It's so fast-paced, it's so witty, and they just throw these hilarious insults at each other. What's a really good example of that we see early on?
Well, right away in Act 1, Scene 1,
Yeah.
Beatrice has this great line where she says, "I wonder that you will still be talking, Signor Benedict. Nobody marks you."
Ah,
Which is just her way of saying, you're not even being noticed.
so cutting.
Exactly. And Benedict, of course, he doesn't let that go. He comes right back with, "What, my dear Lady Disdain?
Yeah.
Are you yet living?"
I love that.
So right away, there's this tension between them.
Yeah, what does a quick exchange like that tell us about those two?
Oh, it tells us a lot. First of all, they're both really smart. And they're not afraid to challenge each other. There's this kind of underlying antagonism in every interaction. But
Definitely.
there's also this little hint of attraction.
Yeah,
Like maybe they're trying to hide it, but it's definitely there.
it's there.
And the way they speak, it's just so clever, so quick, and with all this wordplay, it shows how sharp they are. But it also makes it really funny.
Yeah, and it really keeps you engaged.
It does.
You want to see what's going to happen next. But it's not all jokes and insults, though, is it?
Oh, no, not at all.
There are moments that are much more serious in this play,
Of course.
where Shakespeare really explores the deeper themes and the emotions. Think about Act 4, Scene 1. After Claudio makes that horrible accusation against Hero,
Yes.
the whole mood changes, right?
It's so different.
It's so intense.
Yes, you see Leonato's grief. Just a father whose daughter he thinks has betrayed him. And Beatrice is so angry, she defends Hero so passionately, and she wants revenge against Claudio.
Yeah, like that line, "Oh, that I were a man."
Right, exactly.
Or Leonato's just utter despair. It's a huge contrast to all the lightheartedness earlier.
It is.
And it shows us that there's real potential for tragedy in this story.
Exactly.
It's not just a comedy anymore. The stakes are so much higher now. And then you have the actual arguments between characters. Those are important too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because they show us the conflicts and how those conflicts drive the plot forward.
That's right.
Like in Act 4, Scene 1 again, when Beatrice tells Benedict to kill Claudio.
Yes.
That's a really big moment.
It is.
Because Benedict is torn between his loyalty to Claudio and his feelings for Beatrice.
And his sense of justice as well.
Right. And what does that tell us about Beatrice?
Oh, it shows how fiercely loyal she is and how much she believes in Hero.
And for Benedict, it's a turning point for him, isn't it?
It really is.
He's not just the witty bachelor anymore. He has to make a really tough decision.
He does.
So Shakespeare uses all these different types of dialogue, from the funny banter to the serious moments to the heated arguments, and it makes us feel so connected to the story.
That's the point.
We laugh, we feel sympathy, we get caught up in the suspense.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the words, but what about the things that aren't said out loud, like the stage directions?
Ah, yes. The stage directions.
How do those help Shakespeare to show us the story instead of just telling it?
They're so important
Okay.
because they give us those visual cues. They tell the actors how to move, what to do, even how to feel sometimes. And they also give us information about where and when the scene takes place.
So they're like instructions embedded in the text itself,
Yes.
even before anyone says a word.
That's right.
They're already setting the scene and guiding the action. Can you give us some examples from Much Ado?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
At the beginning of Act 2, Scene 3, it just says, enter Benedict alone.
Okay.
Now, that seems simple, but it tells us right away that he's by himself, usually in Leonardo's orchard. And this is important because it sets the stage for his soliloquy.
Right, because he's just been tricked into thinking Beatrice is in love with him.
Exactly.
And because he's alone, we get to hear all his inner thoughts.
Right.
Which we wouldn't get if he were talking to someone else.
That's the point.
So it creates a totally different atmosphere. What about another one?
Another good one is Act 3, Scene 3. It says, enter Dogberry and Verges and the Watch.
Okay.
Now, this seems pretty straightforward, but it marks a really big turning point in the plot.
Why is that?
Because these characters, they seem like bumbling fools, but they end up overhearing Baracchio confessing.
Oh.
So their arrival is crucial to the whole story.
I see. So it's not just about who's on stage, but also when they enter and exit,
Exactly.
that affects the drama too.
Yes.
What about a stage direction that's not actually written out, but is still implied?
Oh, right. In Act 4, Scene 1, after Claudio accuses Hero, it doesn't actually say it, but we all know that Hero faints.
Yeah.
Even though it's not written in the text, it's understood that that's what happens.
Because it makes sense.
Right.
I mean, the shock and the humiliation.
It's too much for her.
It's a powerful moment.
It is.
Even though it's not explicitly stated.
Exactly.
So even a small detail like that can make a huge difference in how we understand the play.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the words and the stage directions. But what about the actions themselves?
You
The
get it.
things the characters actually do on stage? That's got to be important too.
It's crucial.
Because it's not just what they say, it's how they behave and move around, and that tells us a lot about their personality.
It moves the story forward.
Yeah, like all those eavesdropping scenes.
Yeah.
With Benedict in the arbor and Beatrice in the orchard. Those create so much tension
Do you do?
because we know they're trying to listen in on other people's conversations. And it shows they're curious about what's being said about them,
Right.
maybe even a little bit interested in each other.
Maybe so.
And then the way they react to what they hear, that's what really changes their feelings.
He is.
So it's their actions of listening that actually start to move them towards each other,
That's right.
even though they're pretending they don't care. Then you have that public rejection of Hero
Oh, yeah.
in Act 4, Scene 1. It's such a horrible moment.
It is.
Because it's all based on John's lies. And Claudio accusing Hero like that, it shows how immature he is,
Right.
how easily he's manipulated, and then Hero faints, which emphasizes how devastating the whole thing is. So it's those physical actions that add another layer to the drama.
Yeah.
And then you have Beatrice asking Benedict to kill Claudio, and Benedict actually agreeing to do it. Those actions are really important too,
They are.
because they show how much they both care about Hero and how their relationship is changing. So it's this combination of words and actions that makes Much Ado About Nothing so engaging.
Absolutely.
It's not just one or the other. It's both working together.
That's true.
Okay, so we've talked about dialogue, stage directions, and physical actions. What other techniques does Shakespeare use to make this play so dramatic?
Well, he uses a lot of different dramatic devices to add layers of meaning and really make us think.
Like what?
Well, one big one is irony. And there are a few different types of irony that he uses.
Okay.
So like with Beatrice and Benedict, there's a lot of verbal irony.
Right, because they're always insulting each other, but we know they're actually attracted to each other.
Exactly.
So they're saying the opposite of what they really mean.
Which creates a lot of humor and tension.
And keeps us guessing. Then there's situational irony, where something happens that you wouldn't expect, like how Dogberry and Verges are the ones who uncover Don John's plot. They're supposed to be these incompetent watchmen, but they end up being the key to saving the day.
It's a bit of a twist.
It is. It's funny, but it also shows that justice can come from unexpected places.
That's right.
And then there's dramatic irony, where the audience knows something that the characters don't.
That's a really powerful technique.
It is?
Like how we know about John's lies about Hero, but Claudio doesn't.
Right.
So we're watching him get tricked.
Yeah.
And it creates so much suspense.
Yeah, you just want to yell at Claudio and tell him the truth.
Exactly.
What about soliloquies and asides?
Oh, those are great tools too.
Are they?
Soliloquies are when a character is alone on stage. and they speak their thoughts out loud.
So we get to hear what they're really thinking,
Yes.
even if they wouldn't say it to anyone else.
Like Benedict's soliloquies. After he's been tricked into thinking Beatrice loves him,
Right.
we see how conflicted he is about his feelings and how he's starting to change.
It's like we're getting a glimpse into his mind. And then asides are those little comments that are directed at the audience or maybe just one other character. But the other characters on stage aren't supposed to hear them.
That's right.
So like John uses asides to tell us about his evil plans.
Yes.
It makes him seem even more villainous.
It does.
So all these different techniques, the irony, the soliloquies, the asides, they add so much depth to the play.
They do.
And they keep us really engaged. Okay, so let's talk about the structure of the play. How does the way it's divided into acts and scenes affect the drama?
Well, Shakespeare often used a 5-act structure, which is a really effective way to tell a story.
How so?
Well, Act 1 is usually for introducing the characters and the setting, and setting up the main conflict.
Okay.
Then in Acts 2 and 3, the plot really starts to develop. We see the relationships unfold, and the conflicts start to get more complicated.
So the tension is building.
Exactly.
And then what happens in Act 4?
Act 4 is usually where the climax happens, the moment of highest tension.
Which, in Much Ado, is Claudio accusing Hero. And then what about Act 5?
Act 5 is for resolving the conflicts and tying up all the loose ends.
So it's like a carefully crafted arc.
It is.
With a beginning, middle, and end.
That's right.
And then within each act, there are different scenes. Why is that important?
Because it allows Shakespeare to shift our focus. We might move from one location to another, or from one group of characters to another.
So it keeps things interesting.
It does.
And it keeps the story moving forward.
That's the point.
And the way the scenes are structured, it also affects the pacing of the play.
Of course.
Like the early acts are usually a bit slower.
Right.
They're setting the stage. And then Act 4 is much faster paced because that's where all the drama happens.
Exactly.
And then Act 5 slows down again as things get resolved. So Shakespeare is really in control of the whole experience.
Yeah.
He knows how to create tension and release it to keep the audience engaged. So it's all these elements working together, the words, the actions, the structure that make Much Ado About Nothing such a great play. And there are some moments in the play where Shakespeare's skill is just so obvious, like those key moments of dramatization.
Yes.
So let's talk about a few of those.
Okay.
Like that first scene between Beatrice and Benedict.
Oh, that's a great one.
It is.
It's just amazing dialogue. It tells us so much about who they are
Yeah.
and how they relate to each other.
Right. Like Beatrice saying, "Nobody marks you,"
Yeah.
and Benedict calling her Lady Disdain. It sets the tone for their whole relationship.
It does.
It's like a verbal duel. And then you have that moment when Hero faints. After Claudio accuses her, even though it's not explicitly written, we all know that's what happens. It's such a powerful visual.
It is.
It shows how utterly devastated she is without her having to say a word.
Exactly.
And then there's the masked ball scene with all that dramatic irony.
Oh, yes.
Because we know John is lying to Claudio, but Claudio believes him, and it's just so frustrating to watch.
It is.
Because we know the truth, and we want Claudio to know it too, so it really pulls us into the story.
That's the point.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today about how Shakespeare makes Much Ado About Nothing so dramatic, but let's do a quick recap to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
So how would you summarize the main ways that Shakespeare creates drama in this play?
Well, I think it comes down to two main things. First, the dialogue is just so lively and engaging, especially between Beatrice and Benedict.
Yeah.
And then second, the situations themselves are so dramatic. Like the deception around Hero and Claudio's accusation.
Right, so it's a combination of words and actions.
Exactly.
And what about stage directions? What's their main purpose?
Well, they're really important for giving us context. They tell us where the scene is set, what the characters are doing, and sometimes even how they're feeling.
So they help us to visualize everything,
Yeah.
to see the play in our minds.
That's right.
And can you give us a quick definition of dramatic irony?
Sure. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the characters don't. Like in Much Ado, when we know John is lying,
Right.
but Claudio doesn't, and that creates a lot of suspense and anticipation.
Because we're waiting to see if Claudio will find out the truth.
Exactly.
Okay, and lastly, what's so important about dialogue in a play?
Well, it's more than just characters talking to each other. It's how we learn about their personalities and how the plot moves forward. It also sets the mood and explores the themes of the play.
So it's really the heart of the whole thing.
It is.
And can you give us one last example of how a character's actions can create drama?
Sure. Claudio accusing Hero at their wedding. That's a huge turning point in the play.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to his actions,
Right.
not just his words.
Right, because actions have consequences.
They do.
And that's something Shakespeare understood very well.
He did.
So this deep dive has been really fascinating. We've learned so much about how Shakespeare uses dramatization to bring much ado about nothing to life. And it's amazing how these techniques are still so effective today.
It's true.
They make the play just as engaging and meaningful now as it was hundreds of years ago.
That's a testament to Shakespeare's genius.
It is.
He understood how to tell a story, not just with words,
Yeah,
but with actions and structure and emotion.
right.
He knew how to make us feel something.
And that's why his plays are still so popular today.
Exactly.
So as you go about your day today, and you encounter different stories, whether it's a play or a movie or even just a conversation with a friend, think about how those stories are being told. Are they just telling you what's happening? Or are they showing you? Are they using the techniques that Shakespeare used to make you feel something, to make you really connect with the story? It's something to think about.
It is.
And it might just change the way you experience stories from now on. Thanks for joining us.